Third down and 20.
Frank, you're picking at 101 in this draft. Lead us off.
Trevor Lawrence.
Good job.
Yeah, that's all you need to hear.
Gold star for Frank.
That's all you need to hear.
You did it.
Won the draft.
Yeah. All right, we can pack up and go. All right,
Can I be Jake?
We'll switch off being Jake. Yeah, give us your Jake
Can I be
impression
Jake
here.
first?
Yeah, give us your Jake
I
impression.
just don't want
here.
to be Jake for the
All
Dwayne
right.
Eskridge.
At 102, I took Trey Lance. Trey Lance has been my 102 quarterback the entire process, and now he just went the best landing spot. The best landing spot.
That wasn't bad. That
That's the
probably would have
best
been what he
landing
said.
spot.
We don't have what Jake's word for words are for each of these guys. We'll try and have to make
I
up
think
his
that was
logic,
actually
but
it.
I think that was
actually-
yeah.
I actually think Frank just played a voice memo that Jake sent us. That was him. So that was Jake's pick, Trey Lance at 102. I probably would have done the same if I had 102. But since he picked Lance at 102, that made it easy for me. I took Justin Fields at 103. I think he's going to become the starter sooner than people think. Oh no, real quick, who do you think starts first, or like kind of becomes the starter first, Trey Lance or Justin Fields?
I think Justin Fields. It's already coming out that I mean,
Fields.
Andy Dalton was brought into Chicago this year, so him and Justin Fields are basically starting at square one. While Trey Lance, Trey Lance has to compete with Jimmy G, who we all aren't huge fans of. I mean,
He's a better
some
quarterback
more
than
others. Yeah, he's a better quarterback. He already knows the system. I wouldn't be surprised, if either of them started week one. But I just think Justin Fields has the upper advantage with a worse quarterback and equal footing as far as knowing the system.
I don't think the Bears had a plan. I think that they were just
No, they didn't.
I think they were just like, shit, we need a quarterback, and we signed Andy Dalton, and then they were in the draft. They're like, oh shit, we can get a quarterback, so let's just trade up for just I don't think this is very calculated by them. I think that they were just we need quarterbacks. Let's just go get them. We go.
I think their plan originally was praying for Russell Wilson, and they sent an offer, but Seahawks were just kind of fuck off.
Yeah, they were we will sacrifice our defense for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, they offered a lot. Wasn't it it was 3 or 4 firsts?
It was a bait move, dude. It was a bait. They were oh, here's Kyle Fuller and Akeem Hicks and a couple firsts. And then the next week they were oh, let's trade Akeem Hicks and Kyle Fuller. And now Akeem Hicks is back. It's a freaking clown fiesta in Chicago.
The Seahawks thing kind of just went away, though, with Russell Wilson. You still have the Deshaun and Houston thing, and you have Aaron Rodgers wanting to leave Green Bay, but all of a sudden, Russell Wilson in Seattle is just oh, no, we're good now.
This is yesterday's news.
Yeah, weird. I don't know. I guess they sorted everything out. Who knows?
Dwayne Eskridge is what solved it.
Yeah. If Dwayne Eskridge is what solved it
Russell
Wilson's that bad.
That guy. That guy.
All right, JT,
All right.
104.
I'm up at 104. This was a pretty toss up, but luckily we're snaking it, so I've got 104 and 105. Here I picked Kyle Pitts. Could have easily been the other guy that I'm about to say. I just think as far as knowing what I'm getting and being sure that I have someone that's probably going to be a top tier at his position. I think Kyle Pitts is the closest to a sure thing that you're going to get, even more so than Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. I think Kyle Pitts is more likely to be a top tier tight end. So, I'd say this is probably the less risky choice. It's probably not the most conventional choice. It is important to also let you know that it's tight end premium too.
Yeah.
It doesn't really change that too much for me. But.
All right, I got some of the picks on the screen now. I'll take them on and off.
I was also going to say a thing with Pitts and versus Chase, because that's kind of been a debate with even in standard drafts. It's not so much also, well, it is this, but there's another factor to it rather than just straight then, who's going to be more productive. You also got to take into account the advantage that you have from having an elite tight end versus having a very good wide receiver. Having a top three, I think having a top 3 tight end, in that elite tier, we know the drop off after the top guys versus receiver. It's kind of there's not like a drop off. Like it's very consistent one after the other. Like having that elite tight end is just such a big advantage. Where I think Pitts that's what kind of gives me the edge for him over Chase. But I understand wanting to take Jamar Chase also. But I think that's a factor in it in this pick as well.
Yeah, and then here at 105, this was pretty easy for me then with Kyle Pitts gone. Going with Jamar Chase. I just think he's probably one of the best prospects that we've had at the wide receiver position in, I don't know, 5 years maybe. Like he's what also feels like a sure thing at wide receiver. We'll get into it later about what his value is already at, though, according to consensus. But, you know, I've spent so much time putting praise on Jamar Chase, hyping him up. I think he's very much the clear wide receiver one. I think consensus agrees with that as well. So Jamar Chase at 105 is who I'm picking here. So we move on to Lounis here at 106.
So 106, I took the other top 3 quarterback, Zach Wilson, just off value. I know he's not kind of like as highly touted in the fantasy community as those top 3 guys, Lawrence, Lance, and Fields, but I still like Zach Wilson a lot. I believe in the new Jets resume, and he's a top 3 pick. Like I think he's a very talented quarterback. So this was kind of easy pick for me at 106.
Can you give me that word again? The Jets.
Yeah.
What?
That resume.
Oh, I said resume. Oh my God, the new Jets regime.
There we go.
That's a good pick, Lounis. I think Zach Wilson right now for me is my 102. So I think that's a good pickup at 106.
Wow. He's probably the one that's all over the boards. In my opinion, Zach Wilson is the one that could either be the biggest bust or biggest steal from this draft. Just like seeing how he's all over the place in different mock drafts and whatnot.
Yeah, if he ends up being a star, you get him at 106.
I'm just not overthinking it in this draft. Like, I think people are kind of taking the bait to a certain extent. I just think Zach Wilson was the second best quarterback prospect. I can understand Trey Lance with the system and everything. I think Zach Wilson just has better talent, more consistent talent. Same thing with the Kyle Pitts over Jamar Chase. They're both good players. Kyle Pitts, better prospect. Give it to me. Jake, 107. And who wants to be Jake this pick?
If you take him here, I'll take him next time.
Oh God, I can't do the Jake voice.
You don't have to do the Jake voice.
But so Jake here at 107 took Javonte Williams. He's all of our RB1s. Don't fall bait if someone in your league, you take Javonte first, they took Najee after you. They're like, week 1 production. I mean, year 1 production, Najee did more. Like Javonte, you're taking him not just for year 1, but for the years to come. He might not start right away, but I think he's going to, and you guys agree, be the best running back out of this draft class. He's 2 years younger than Najee. And I like the fit, especially, if they get Aaron Rodgers, does Javonte's value go up?
It doesn't matter for me. I just think that Javonte Williams, to me, before the process started, was just the better running back. But at 108, I went with Najee Harris. I still really like Najee Harris. I think the fit in Pittsburgh definitely boosted him for me. I think they're going to take advantage of his skill set pretty well. I can understand why you'd want Najee over Javonte Williams, but kind of like Luna said, I just think that Javonte Williams is the better back. So I'll take him over Najee, or more realistically, I would trade down and pick up Javonte. 109, this is one of my favorite picks in the first round, aside from Javonte, is Devontae Smith. I was able to land both Javonte Williams and Devontae Smith at 111 in 2 of my rookie drafts. Devontae Smith is just, you have the people that don't like him. You have the JTs.
Yep.
You have and he seems to be falling. He goes even below Jaden Waddle a whole lot of drafts. Devontae Smith, I fell in love with him his junior season, his senior season, which is the cherry on top. This is a guy that realistically should be a top 5 pick in a whole lot of other drafts that you're getting at the later end of a first round. So I really like the value there.
All right.
And he's the number 1 receiver right away.
Yeah, I don't put much, thought into that one though. Situations change quickly, but I've hated on Devontae enough where my record's clear on that one. I'll be Jake for this one. Jake here picking at 110. I'm taking Jalen Waddle. He was picked ahead of Devontae Smith. Can't believe I got him here. What a steal. He kind of just checks all the boxes that Devontae Smith doesn't. Like we've talked about a lot where, it looked like Jalen Waddle was going to outproduce Devontae Smith this year until Jalen Waddle broke his ankle. They're in pretty similar situations where they're both getting Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. That is, they're both getting matched up with quarterbacks that they had in college. They both got picked in the top 10. They both have an easy-ish path to being the top wide receiver on their team. Albeit Will Fuller is probably a little more competition than Jalen Reagor is, but like it's not that different for me. I just think, as far as now, this is JT speaking, I just think Jalen Waddle has a much better chance of hitting than Devontae Smith does. So I'll take Jalen Waddle here at 110.
So after the Jalen Waddle pick, 111, yeah. I took Travis Etienne. He is running back, first round draft capital. He's been a star at Clemson the past 2 years. I'm not very worried about James Robinson. I think whatever Urban Meyer says now is just kind of coach speak. That's going to be Travis Etienne's backfield, just to give it like a couple weeks if it's not right away. But I think he's a star. I think he's a threat in the receiving game. I think they're going to use him a lot on screens, passes out in the flat. He's paired back with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence trusts him a ton, which I think kind of is going to contribute to the amount of catches he gets. And I just like him. He's going to be the long-term running back paired with Trevor Lawrence, and he is first-round draft capital. So I thought this was an easy pick at 111.
Yeah, and then me picking at 112 and 201, I kind of like the receivers here. Once the first three running backs go off the board. So that's exactly what I went with. This is another one where it was a coin flip for me. The rest of them aren't really coin flips. So this one was like a true coin flip. Like, first I took Rashad Bateman. A lot of people are knocking him for his landing spot, but then a lot of people are rushing to his defense about landing spot. I'm more of the opinion that landing spot doesn't really matter. Like, I just think if you're a good player, you're going to be a good player regardless. We've seen that with like Allen Robinson. With Rashad Bateman, it is weird. Like, he checks a lot of those boxes that I was referring to when we were talking about Jalen Waddle too. Like, he had very good production. He had production early. He also had another NFL talent on his team with Tyler Johnson. So, like Rashad Bateman does check a lot of boxes. He's not as big as everyone thought he was, which is what knocks him down. I've spoken on that before. I just think, what the Ravens really are kind of telegraphing to people, though, is like, we're looking to transition our offense into a more passing attack. And, Rashad Bateman does have kind of that clear path to being that alpha wide receiver one, even though he's not exactly an alpha build. You're putting him up against Tylan Wallace and Hollywood Brown, who are smaller guys. So,
one thing I want to say about Bateman is kind of like with the whole fit scenario, because I agree with JT there. At least I'm not a huge Rashad Bateman guy, but the fit is really good. It's not bad. It's not average. It's actually really good for me, because I think that the Ravens, with their run-heavy attack, I see this team only increasing their RPO usage, and Rashad Bateman is one of the top RPO receivers in this entire class. There's probably, you got Jamar Chase, because Jamar Chase is just good at everything, Devontae Smith, and then Rashad Bateman would probably be number 3 in terms of receivers that I'd want to use RPOs with. He can release quickly. He can, get yards after the catch. So he can block. He kind of does everything you want in a heavy RPO scheme, and even like a play action scheme to a certain extent, off of the RPOs where you want to go play action and hit a team vertically. I think Rashad Bateman's fit isn't just average. I think it's actually really good. And I'm surprised that it's just the narrative, right? Oh, Ravens run, so pass catchers aren't good. I don't believe that at all. I actually think it's a really good fit.
They're a running team until they're not. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like whenever the coaching staff decides to change it. We see it with the Patriots all the time. I'm going back to my Homer stuff here, but like, some years the Patriots will just be running the ball all the time, and other times they're passing it. It just depends on what their personnel is, and that's what good coaches kind of do. They're able to draft guys that fit their scheme, but they're also able to mold their scheme around the players that they've got. So speaking of drafting players that fit their scheme, if you ask me right now, I might pick him the spot ahead, to be honest. Like, I can't differentiate between these two. They're so different, though, in terms of who they are. So at 112, I picked Rashad Bateman. At 201, I'm picking Terrace Marshall, who did get drafted by the Panthers. And, someone that's fitting into their scheme, Joe Brady. He was the offensive coordinator for the LSU when, LSU was going off with Joe Burrow. He gets one of his guys back in Terrace Marshall, already has a repertoire with Joe Brady. He's that alpha guy that I kind of wanted Bateman to be. He didn't really hit the boxes. I mean, that's kind of being excused away now by having Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in front of him at LSU. But, I think this Panthers offense, I think people are kind of doubting his landing spot too, because he's going to be likely behind DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, as well as, there's still Christian McCaffrey there. And their quarterback play is still below average in Sam Darnold. I don't think anyone will really argue that Sam Darnold is going to be, a higher end QB too.
He could be average.
He could be average. Like at the best, he could be average. But like even with that, right? Like Teddy Bridgewater was able to sustain DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson. I know CMC wasn't there, but Mike Davis still got his. I just think we're going to switch stuff around. I think you'll have Terrace Marshall and Robbie Anderson on the outside, and then that'll kind of put DJ Moore on the inside in the slot more, which I think is I really like this offense. It's like one of my favorite offenses. I mean, it's just a shame that, not to hate on Sam Darnold that much, but I think if they had a better quarterback, this would be a very lethal.
They got Fields at 8.
Yeah, if they picked Fields, oh my God, this would be like my dream offense if that's what would happen, but it's not. So I spent a lot of time talking about pick 201, but yeah, those are my two guys right there at the end of the first, start of the second.
Back to back.
The one thing I want to say though is that I think that DJ Moore is still going to stay on the outside, and it's almost Terrace Marshall might go in the slot. I know he played a lot in the slot at LSU, or he might just have to compete with Robbie Anderson. And the one thing I will say about that as well is that we saw how good that connection between Darnold and Robbie Anderson was in New York. If Terrace Marshall is a better deep threat than Robbie Anderson is, that's what I want to that's the thing. The question I'm asking if I'm a Terrace Marshall truther, because if you believe that he is a better deep threat than Robbie Anderson, that's where all of a sudden he's going to be a freaking stud. And you can see him getting 1,000-yard seasons and having those really big, good games. But DJ Moore, I just looked it up. He played 2020. He only played 15.9% of his snaps in the slot, where I think Terrace Marshall was almost like 50-50. So, it will be interesting.
We don't know, because they were playing Curtis Samuel in that slot role a lot, and he's kind of more suited for it. So without Curtis Samuel now, we might see that increase.
Yeah,
well, I'm just kind of coming from the fact that we did see Terrace Marshall play a lot in the slot, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy they kick in there, which might actually be a good thing for Marshall. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. This could be good, and kind of because when you're in the slot, you have more of an advantage of being able to, you have the inside and the outside, and generally speaking, it's just tough to cover all that space when you're a D-back, so that might actually help him out.
This was kind of more me dreaming and hoping that DJ Moore would be in the slot, because I just think DJ Moore could feast in there. But yeah, same thing with Terrace Marshall. I think either one would be a very dominant force to have as your slot receiver. And don't forget, Frank, they've got Dan Arnold there too. So.
Yeah, they got my man Dan.
Yeah. So all right, moving on. Lounis picking at 202.
Yeah, there's not going to be a whole ton here. It's just more, if in the second round you can get a QB with top 15 draft capital, you take him right there, no question. Mac Jones was someone who some people were saying might have been a top 5 pick if San Francisco decided to go with him instead of Trey Lance. With kind of the way the Patriots run things, I wouldn't even be surprised if he didn't start a game until very late in the season this year. I feel like they're going to run Cam for a while. But this is more like a long-term pick. You get potentially the next franchise quarterback for the New England Patriots for a while. So if you're telling me I can get that top of the second round, top 15 draft capital, I still like Mac Jones. I just didn't like him over Trey Lance or Fields, but I still do like him as a talent a lot. I'm taking him easy here at 202.
I think it's a good pick, Lounis. Really good
Thank
value
you.
pick.
It's a pretty nice deal. Especially if your league has taxi spots and you could just put Mac Jones
Leave
on
him
there
on
and
taxi until he's a starter.
yeah.
See, I don't know. Like, I think that Mac Jones might play a little bit sooner than people think. It really depends on what Cam Newton we get. Because if we get the Cam Newton that started the season last year, then okay, Mac Jones ain't playing. But if we get post-COVID Cam Newton, then it's like, well, Mac Jones is going to be playing pretty freaking quick.
I think Cam will be better. I think because I'll give him a break from COVID, and then mainly now they have a way more weapons for him rather than having to throw to like Bird and N'Keal Harry as the two outside
true.
guys. So we'll see.
All right, Jake here. I'll be Jake this time. Jake at 203 picked up Elijah Moore. I think this is a pretty decent pickup for Jake. These receivers, I think Bateman is kind of the consensus receiver 4. And then after that, it's almost, okay, who do you like? And Jake liked Elijah Moore. I probably would have taken Rondale Moore here, kind of like I did the next pick. But Elijah Moore, the thing I like about him, he checks every box. He doesn't necessarily dominate every box, but I liked his film. He's got good data analytics. He's good at separating production, breakout age, anything you can come up with. Elijah Moore checks the box, other than maybe like really sick landing spot.
I didn't mind the landing spot.
I don't mind it either, but it's the Jets, so it's like,
yeah, no, I'm more to say that because I think the receiving group is wide open after Corey Davis, and even Corey Davis isn't like some like perennial wide receiver 1. Like,
yeah, I'd say it's like basically wide open. I think this is bad news for Denzel Mims more than Corey Davis. I think it's going to be Elijah Moore and Corey Davis.
I think Denzel Mims' 2020 season was bad news for Denzel Mims.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone really watched the Jets games back and saw that Denzel Mims wasn't exactly good at what he was drafted to do.
Not only that, but I mean, I get the GM is still there who drafted him, but this coaching staff has no loyalty to Denzel Mims. Like, they went out and they signed Corey Davis. They went out and drafted Elijah Moore. So, he's already kind of on the wrong foot because he's the third guy as far as preference goes. So, yeah, bad news for Denzel Mims, but we're talking about the rookies here. So, Frank, what do you got at 204?
Well, real quick, one thing I do want to say is that if you're an Elijah Moore truther, which I am to a certain extent, he's
not wide receiver 4.
Take his ADP. I'm not going to necessarily reach on him into like 201. It really does depend on who's on the board to a certain extent. Because like I'd rather have Mac Jones than Elijah Moore. But if Elijah Moore can be the Dax Milne of the Jets offense for Zach Wilson, because I think Elijah Moore, once the play starts breaking down and Zach Wilson starts scrambling around, that's Elijah Moore time. Elijah Moore will get open, and that's why I really like Elijah Moore is when these plays are breaking down. He's going to be the guy getting the ball, at least I think, which could really create kind of like with AB and Big Ben way back when. Dude, AB would just rack up the fantasy points on these backyard football plays. I kind of foresee that happening to a certain extent with Elijah Moore and Zach Wilson.
Wouldn't be surprised. I'm
really high on Elijah Moore.
Yeah,
I would.
I like
when you said
safe,
201,
dude. He's a safe prospect.
When you said 201, I would take Mac Jones ahead of Elijah just because he's a quarterback. But then after him, I would take Elijah Moore. He's still my wide receiver 4.
Okay, I'll move on to 204
I know it's
here.
not consensus, but
no, yeah, I mean, kind of like we said, right after those top 3 guys, it's almost pick your poison. Who do you like more? I can totally see. I probably have Elijah Moore over Bateman as well, but just Bateman right now seems to be the de facto 4, and then after that, it's anyone's game at that point, and no one knows. Okay, I picked up Rondale Moore at 204. I love Rondale Moore. I thought he went to a good spot in Arizona because they just kind of needed a reliable. I call it like a third guy because I did that Arizona Cardinals analysis, and okay, D-Hop's a great receiver, right? Kyler Murray is extremely dynamic, but outside of those 2 guys, the most reliable player was Larry Fitzgerald, which Larry Fitzgerald was basically a dinosaur last year. he has good hands, but he couldn't separate. Rondale Moore can be that reliable third guy, second option in this offense that they've kind of been missing to take them to that next step. So I really like Rondale Moore. At 205, I picked up Trey Sermon with my back-to-back pick. I understand Trey Sermon probably goes before 205 in a whole lot of leagues simply because people need running backs, and Trey Sermon is probably just that next best running back. So I can understand someone reaching a little bit on Trey Sermon for just to get that, that possible RB3, that flex running back, and then that RB2 if you need him to be in a good system. So I like both of the value picks, like the value of these picks here, Rondale Moore and Trey Sermon.
I love the Rondale Moore pick because he's 111 on my big board, and I mean simply the other guys I had kind of higher than Rondale Moore. I just think that's a great pick at 205 or 204, sorry, and then at 205 getting Trey Sermon too. Like I think he's very clearly the running back four for me.
Picks.
Yeah, he's very clearly the running back four for me. So I just think right around here, 206 is probably where I'd call the tier break.
Yeah.
And then so at 206, I'm gonna pretend to be Jake here, Lounis. And I'm picking Dynasty Brown. And Jake kind of, some may say he was influenced by me and Frank conducting the Dynasty Brown hype train. But yeah, but here he is at 206 picking Dynasty Brown. Frank and I have talked about him for a while. Him on UNC, you should go and watch his tape. He actually looked really good. I know I'm not really a tape guy, but I kind of, I did watch Dynasty Brown, a lot of his tape, and I really loved it. And then from an analytical standpoint, he was also very good. So, Dynasty Brown also ending up on Washington. I know that Ryan Fitzpatrick's our current quarterback, and they don't really have a future currently at quarterback, but I like the train, Frank. If you're watching us on YouTube or Twitch, there we got a hype train.
All aboard.
So,
Lounis, you coming on here, Lounis? Train's leaving.
Get on the hype train, Lounis.
I can't even see it. I'm not on the stream.
Yeah, you don't need to see it. Are you getting on the train or not?
Oh, no, I'm on the train. Yeah, I just drafted him.
All right, let's go. We're all on the train.
Right.
Dynasty hype train, baby.
We're all on the hype train. So there is the issue of like his quarterback though, and like what's going to happen in the future. But I think him, Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, that's a pretty good wide receiver core. I think that's one that, they all could, especially with Ryan Fitzpatrick, they all can eat. And, you got to assume at some point Washington figures it out, but who knows? Then Lounis, you're up now at 207.
Yeah, so at 207, I took Michael Carter, who's my RB5. So here, Michael Carter is interesting because it really depends. I'm telling people I'm picking Michael Carter here as someone who also had him RB5 pre-draft. Like landing spot isn't the only thing doing it for me, but the landing spot does help because I do think even though I like Michael P. Ryan, I don't think he's going to be the starter next year. They didn't sign a running back, so I think Michael Carter has a very good chance to go in and kind of be the starter by week 1. And if you can get a starting rookie running back, just coming in their rookie season right away and mid-second, I like that value. I believe in him a lot. I don't think he's going to be like insanely productive, but I do like him now in the long term. Obviously, if they draft someone in the future, it does happen. It does hurt his value, but I like him in the mid-second a lot, especially considering I think after him is a huge drop-off in running backs.
See, here, I kind of agree with this. Here, I'd say right before Michael Carter is a huge drop-off. As far as talent, and when you talk about running backs, I kind of agree with that. I just think a lot of people are starting to say that Trey Sermon is Keyshawn Vaughn of this class, which Frank kind of predicted. Frank predicted a while ago. I think if you're going to point to one running back to be Keyshawn Vaughn, it's actually probably Michael Carter because like you're looking at situation and you're like, oh, okay, he's got a path to opportunity. I don't think Michael Carter is like. I was the lowest of the group on Michael Carter.
Well, I still when Keyshawn Vaughn got drafted, Ronald Jones was coming off a not bad season. I think he had like 700 yards the year before, and they signed Leonard Fournette. I think this backfield's even more open than that Bucks one at the start of the year.
Yeah, I'm just not a Michael Carter guy. Go ahead, Frank.
I like Michael Carter at 207.
I agree with that
in this draft. But the thing is that he's probably going way before that, which I don't necessarily agree with. So I think that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, I don't agree with those taking him early second, reaching just because they're like, oh, starting running back, I need a run. Like, no, I think mid second is what I value him at.
Yeah, and
Around
so
that
then,
206, 207.
GT, these were nice pickups here, 208, 209, at least in my opinion. I love these little picks here.
Yeah, so looking at it, I just didn't like this spot, to be honest, Frank. Like, I would gladly trade for you. I would gladly trade with you, trade down out of this spot and this zone. Like, I just think this is where it becomes an issue for me, where I just don't really like most of the players left in this draft. I don't think
You don't like the Muth? Come on.
Not particularly more than any other wasteland tight end, to be honest. Like, I just think he's going to get stuck in the wasteland. But all right, so 208, I picked Nico Collins, Houston Texans. He's a senior, plays for Michigan, so it's hard to hold any receiving stats against him because the Michigan quarterbacks are just terrible and they just slaughter the Michigan wide receivers. I don't understand, if you're a wide receiver, why you're going to Michigan. So Nico Collins, though, like, this is probably where I would have had Seth Williams, but Seth Williams didn't get drafted in the first 3 rounds, and Nico Collins did. So we're just going to switch to Nico Collins and pretend like Nico Collins was the guy that I was hyping up as my later rounds, later in the draft sleeper. I don't know. I think Nico Collins is someone that we all kind of liked as a group. We're not really willing to bump him up much higher than this. But as far as that next kind of tier and group of wide receivers, I think Nico Collins is definitely the strongest of them. And then moving on.
And you could get him a little bit later than 208 in most drafts. He's fallen in the 3rd round I've seen. I think he's a phenomenal 3rd rounder.
Yeah,
I've had him in the 2nd round ever since I saw him at the Senior Bowl that first time. Like, this guy's freaking good.
I don't want to spoil a pick, but he's kind of been going mid-second, which is pushing guys like Nico Collins down. Amon-Ra is going really early in drafts.
Yeah.
That's
he
crazy.
Is going insanely high. Even in the startup, I'm going to try finding some of the receivers he went over, but it was surprising.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. I'm very perplexed by it. Looking at 209, Frank did just allude to it. Pat Freiermuth, he wasn't necessarily my tight end too coming into this. Yeah, but I just think situation like where he got drafted, he probably was a lot of people's tight end too, like coming into this. So I just figured this was like a good, safe pick at this point. Although I'm just like, after 206 or so, I'm just like, the rest of the draft doesn't really do much for me.
Real quick, do you guys want to throw up in your mouth a little bit?
No, not really, but yes, with it.
Yeah.
So in the startup, Rondale Moore went 9-12, and then at 10:03 went Amon-Ra, followed by Terrace Amon-Ra at 10:03, followed by Marshall at 10:05, Darnell Mooney at 10:10. And Diami Brown 11:03.
I just don't get how.
And Nico Collins at 11:09.
I don't get how Amon-Ra is going before Terrace Marshall and in the same conversation as Rondale Moore. Like, because
lines are elite. He's biting kneecaps.
Yeah. Like, you could say he has a chance at opportunity, but I don't think his chance of opportunity is any greater than that of Terrace Marshall or Rondale Moore. Like, there's no part of Amon-Ra that appeals to me more than those guys.
I'm just shocked that his stock has risen for the post draft. I thought it was gonna fall. Like,
he got drafted in the 4th round to like one of the teams that's predicted to get one of the worst wins. Like, not that.
Man, you understand? He's the next Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Didn't Terry? Wait, what round did Terry McLaurin get drafted?
Terry McLaurin went in the mid-3rd.
So he had better draft capital.
Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Like, after the 3rd round, it gets very, very, very sketchy.
Also, I'm pretty sure, because JT, you looked at this. Wasn't there more 3rd round comp picks this year than like a whole lot of other years?
Oh, I could break down the data actually. Let me pull it up real quick.
Because I'm pretty sure this year there was like way more 3rd round compensatory picks given than usual. While you're doing that, I mean,
I
Liz, do you
wonder-
need to say any more on Tony? Like,
On Tony, I mean, listen, you're getting a wide receiver with top 20 draft capital at 210.
I like Tony at 210. I think it's a good pick.
I
know
love Tony at
JT
210.
hates it.
I mean, at 210, I can't get that mad. But
I consider him at 207. Now it's like I got back-to-back JT's picks back behind me. I don't need to sweat. But no, Tony at 210. Listen, he's a receiver who's gonna step in. I think he's already ahead of Sterling Shepard. Well, whoever you put as wide receiver 2 between Slayton and Shepard, I think he's immediately a top 3 receiver on that team with the draft capital they spent on him. I think they're going to give him carries. I think they're going to give him just try to get the ball in his hands as much as possible. I think he's going to play kind of a similar role that Debo played in San Francisco his rookie year. You saw what they did with him, a lot of end arounds, a lot of screens, just getting the ball in his hands quick. So I think he's going to play that role on the Giants.
Yeah, and then to butt in back to what Frank was saying. So, we're kind of looking into this whole draft capital stuff and, what comp picks have to do with this. So on average, right, for any given year, although it has increased in recent years, but going back to 2006, on average, there are 4.6 comp picks that are given in the third round, at the end of the third round. In 2021, there were 10. So what that means is it's just moving everyone else
double
down, Amon-Ra St. Brown being a 4th round pick, a middle of the 4th.
Those compensation picks weren't given based off of this year's free agency, right? It was
the year before.
I was going to say, I wonder if, how COVID, the salary cap didn't go up?
Yeah.
I wonder if that played an impact in kind of less teams retaining some guys to help with the cap room and more people switching teams, which resulted in more comp picks.
This is basically every other year has had 32 comp picks. This is like the only year that had 37, which is more than average, obviously. So
I wonder if
it's not huge, but it does bump him down. Like, technically speaking, he's bumped down a few draft picks. Like,
Yeah, and we already we know that once you're not a 3rd or round or higher wide receiver and you're in that lower draft capital, your chances of becoming fantasy relevant are even less. So it just makes a worse case for Amon-Ra St. Brown. And to think that he's going so high is crazy. We're not even on Amon-Ra St. Brown yet, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jake he stole Kellen Mond from my grips here.
Yep.
Right before me at 211. I think it's a good pickup. I think Kellen Mond's ADP in most leagues is more of the early 3rd than late 2nd. I like Kellen Mond a lot in the late 2nd. I'm trying to target him there in a whole lot of my leagues. Yeah. So I've already said my spiel on Kellen Mond. I think he's really good. I think he's got that legit top end of the other top quarterbacks in the draft. He just needs that consistency. Amon-Ra, I picked him up at 212. Took the bait here a little bit. For me, Amon-Ra, Josh Palmer, and someone I nabbed way later in the draft, Amari Rodgers. Those are the 3 next receivers on my board. I thought they all went into really good spots. And Amon-Ra and Josh Palmer were the 2 guys that I had rated higher than Amari before the draft. So I went with them. I trusted my scouting pre-draft. So those are my 2 picks there. I was struggling to decide which one I'd rather have between Palmer and Amon-Ra. I had Amon-Ra rated higher, but as JT kind of alluded to, the lower draft capital is tough to believe in. But I did go with him at 212.
I think right now I might give – it is really close because Amon-Ra is going to have the immediate kind of soon opportunity. But I like Palmer and on the Chargers a ton, especially paired with Herbert. I don't know how long Mike Williams is going to be there.
Probably just one more year.
I was going to say, this is the last year of his deal. And then who's considered their number 3 wide receiver right now?
Jalen Guyton, Tyron Johnson.
Yeah, I think Josh
Justin
Palmer
Herbert's left hand.
Yeah, I think Josh, technically, I guess Eckler. But I think Josh Palmer can beat out those guys behind Williams and Keenan Allen. They lost Hunter Henry. And if Mike Williams leaves next year, he could be the number 2 wide receiver as soon as the 2022-2023 season. So Josh Palmer is one of my favorite guys towards the end of the
my problem with Palmer, though, is that I liked him at the Senior Bowl. I wasn't in love with him. I liked his tape. I wasn't in love with it. This is going to sound ridiculous, but just bear with me because I said it on a stream and JT was like, dude, what the hell are you saying? I almost call him Jamar Chase, like very, very diet Jamar Chase because they have a similar play style, right? Because I don't
7-11 Jamar Chase.
Yeah, like a 7-11 Jamar Chase, right? No, like he legitimately is because Jamar Chase, like the one thing I didn't like about him was his separation wasn't like at necessarily an insanely elite level like some of the other better separators. And Josh Palmer, like that's where he really struggles. Like he just struggles to get D-backs off of him. But in terms of like winning 50-50 balls, he's got strong hands. Like dude, he's good at all that. It's just, is he going to have that ability to truly be like a dominant, consistent receiver like Jamar Chase is projected to be? I don't know. Like 7-11 Jamar Chase, are we buying in or no?
No. Well, I guess at this price it doesn't matter, but
yeah.
I think it's interesting. No, I mean, I'm telling you, I love him. I'm as someone who owns pick well, in our league, I own pick 208, 210. At 210, I'm looking at him hard. He could easily end up being my pick there.
All right, let's speed run the rest of the third round here. Jake, Dwayne Eskridge. He's been on Dwayne Eskridge the whole draft process. I actually like Dwayne Eskridge. I think it's a little early for me here at 302. I, in one of my leagues, was able to nab him at the very, 401. So I like him there a whole lot more than I like 302. Yeah. But I think that he's still a decent prospect, and it's just he's a weird guy, right? He's a developmental guy, but he's 24, and those things usually don't really mesh very well.
He's ageist JT coming in here, but he's the same age as DJ Moore. Just like I think he's actually he's older than DJ Moore.
I didn't know he was older.
He's older.
Yeah, it's scary, and like he needs development, but I think that he has talent to be a threat in all three phases. All right, Lounis, Des Fitzpatrick here at 303.
So Des Fitzpatrick is one of those guys that got boosted by his landing spot. I think Corey Davis leaving that Titans receiving core after AJ Brown got a little bit more open. Who would be considered the wide receiver 2 at the start of the year?
Him or Reynolds, right?
Reynolds?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's what I'm saying, where that 2 and 3 spot are pretty open. So at this point, once you get into the third round, you're just kind of looking for upside guys. So that situation gives you upside. He was a 4th round pick, I believe. So I'm good with him at 303.
Yeah, and then so I'm breaking the mold here. Not only did I pick Nico Collins as a senior, but now I'm picking at 304, I'm picking Tylan Wallace, another senior. I know. This is someone actually that I mentioned in the group chat with Jake. I thought Jake would have picked him here. Jake's been the guy that's kind of been beating the Tylan Wallace drum.
Yeah. Better season than Bateman.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Say that, yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. Frank already talked about the Ravens being good passing attack. He did have good production. He tore his ACL, and so he came back for his senior season, which I kind of think was a mistake. I would have rather just gone for the NFL. Jake's already hyped him up a bunch. I think picking him here is a nice grab. And then 305, this is where I'm starting to toss darts. And, someone I just wanted to, stash away on my taxi. Davis Mills. We talked about Kellen Mond, Kyle Trask. I think Davis Mills has the easiest path to opportunity because we don't really know what's going on with Deshaun Watson.
He'll get an opportunity. It's just going to suck.
You say that, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Davis Mills was highly scouted out of high school, right? He was.
Yeah, he was a 5-star prospect.
Yeah, and then it's interesting because he just didn't really play a whole lot in college. I think he's got 13 or 14
he was
games
behind.
under his belt.
He was behind KJ Costello at Stanford, and then Costello transferred to Mississippi State. And I mean, Davis Mills looked good, and that Stanford offense is a pro-style offense. So a lot of those things and concepts will translate to the NFL.
I just think at 305, my best shot at swinging and hitting is getting a starting quarterback. I mean, we've seen it with Jalen Hurts. I don't necessarily he doesn't have the same kind of skill set as Jalen Hurts, but if I could get a starting quarterback at 305, I think that's the steal. So I might as well just swing for Davis Mills. And
no, I like that pick. I comped him to Andy Dalton, and if you got an Andy Dalton here, you're pretty happy. Yeah, it's not crazy, but for 305, it's a very good pick in Superflex leagues.
Yeah. So Lounis, who you got at 306?
So I took Kenneth Gainwell. He was drafted in the 4th round by Philadelphia. Just kind of knowing how Nick Sirianni ran his Colts offense last year, I can easily see Gainwell kind of getting into that Nyheim Hines role. I think he's going to make Boston Scott pretty irrelevant, and I could see him kind of being in as a receiving back, change of pace from Miles Sanders. I think he's going to be the RB2, if not by the start of the year, by midseason after Sanders. So in the mid-third, I'll take him there, especially if he offers kind of that receiving threat the same way Hines did behind Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, and then so I'll pretend to be Jake here again. He's picking Anthony Schwartz here, who I don't mind. He's a speedster, like he's a track runner. Played for Auburn. Him and Seth Williams would compete for, receiving stats. Got drafted by the Browns, so there is a chance for opportunity where like OBJ and Jarvis Landry are getting older. Who knows how long they're stuck with the Browns. Baker Mayfield's actually not a bad quarterback. I actually really like Baker Mayfield. He was picked in the 3rd round, which is what you want out of a wide receiver. It's kind of what I want Seth Williams to be. So at that point, like there's a lot of stuff that does go towards Anthony Schwartz, where at this point, I don't think this is a bad pick at all by Jake.
I'd rather have Amari Rodgers, but I agree with you.
You're picking at 308, so.
Yeah, I picked up Amari Rodgers. He was a guy I was considering at the very early 3rd, so I just was able to land him here. If Aaron Rodgers stays, I think Amari Rodgers could be a really nice value pick. I'm not going to pick him like in the middle of the 2nd, like I've seen him go in some leagues.
That's crazy.
Especially if I don't know if Rodgers is going to be there, but I could easily see him developing into a Randall Cobb. And he's one of the biggest risers for me with landing spots in the draft. Chuba Hubbard for me at 309. This is a nice little developmental pickup. This is like a taxi squad stash kind of a guy. I'm not huge on Chuba, but I had him valued as like that mid-3rd round kind of prospect. So picking him up here at 309, I'll gladly take.
Yeah, 310, I took Kyle Trask, my guy from Florida.
Can we pause it real quick?
Yeah.
Remember when Lounis picked Kyle Trask at the end of the 1st round?
And then called us crazy for clowning him.
Yeah.
Listen.
And then Kyle Trask is going to be like insane, and it's going to look like he's in the redraft, be a 1st round pick, and this is going to be like, fuck you guys. That's going to be great.
Listen. First off, you gotta let me finish my off-season evaluation. Second, listen, if he ended up in Chicago and they didn't have any other QBs, he's flying up the board.
Yeah, sure.
Listen, because at that time I was thinking, okay, it's Kyle Trask versus Trubisky. I like Kyle Trask's chances against Trubisky.
He just wasn't on Chicago. Like,
No. We were doing it based off of the website's mock draft where he got drafted in the 2nd by Chicago.
That's true.
Yeah, he got drafted in the early 2nd by Chicago. So I was like, okay. No, if it wasn't a landing spot, it would. But so at 310, I'm taking Trask. I still do like him a lot, more than Davis Mills. Even though Davis Mills will probably be able to start first, just because that Texans QB situation is a shit show. So I understand why. But I like him. I think especially if you think Brady's going to retire in the next 2 years, and the year he does retire, they're not going to have an early draft pick, so Trask would get that chance. And if he plays well, we could end up being the guy. So I think that's a really good chance to take on someone at the end of the 3rd.
Yeah, I'll be Jake again. 311. I got really mad at Jake because I'm picking 312, and he took Ramondre Stevenson right in front of me,
man.
Which is tough.
He didn't have to take a special teamer out of anger.
I'm going to fight you. Ramondre Stevenson, like people don't really realize, Ramondre Stevenson, forced Trey Sermon to transfer, and so we're getting Ramondre Stevenson a whole round and a half behind Trey Sermon. I just think the value is there. But then just to speed right through 312, I had to pick my guy, Seth Williams. I know he got drafted in like the 6th round, but I couldn't leave him off the board. I'm still a believer. He's on the Broncos, which is kind of a nutty depth chart. He's got a lot to fight in front of, but I believe in Seth Williams. I'm the Seth Williams truther.